Hey guys, welcome back. Today let's see the migration of an application from AWS cloud to Azure cloud. Okay, so actually in the previous class we have seen how we can migrate an application from on-premise to AWS. Today the we can see the migration from one cloud to the another. Okay, like what are all the steps involved and how an application will be migrated. Okay, so if you see, so today let's assume again Amazon e-commerce application. So this is just an assumption, and they won't be going for Azure anyway because they have their own cloud. So let's assume, due to some scenario, Amazon e-commerce application is going to be migrated from AWS to Azure. Okay, so if this happens, like what are all the key things need to be taken into account, and what will be the time duration, and how will be the downtime. So all these things we can see going forward. Okay. So if you guys like the content, please like and subscribe to the channel. Okay. So now let's get into the content. Okay. So key factors affecting migration timeline. Okay. So the migration depends on many factors actually. So one is application complexity. Okay. So application complexity. So here we discuss about how the architecture has been designed. So in case if we have some microservice architecture, means microservice architecture, it's like Kubernetes, where we will have each and every um, component will be written as a microservice, whereas monolithic. So hope you guys know the difference between microservice and monolithic. If you are not known, monolithic is like we will have a single server, we will have a server, and all the things. For example, if you take cart, payment, and all other components like inventory. So everything will be written as a single service. Okay. So in case if that service goes down, all the components will be going down. Okay. But whereas microservice is like we define each and every service. For example, cart will be defined as a different service. Payment will be written as a different service. So if one of the services goes down, in case if the card goes down, the payment will be working. Okay. Meanwhile, we can try to bring up only this card. But in our scenario, if one things goes down, the entire application will go down. Okay, so the entire application will not be available for the end user, whereas in the microservice architecture, if one of the components goes down also, like the application will be available only that particular service, it will not be accessible. Okay, that is the main difference between monolithic and microservice architecture. So we have to like analyze how complex the application is, like whether it is microservice or monolithic, and how complex they have written it. So it will be depending on that as well. And data volume, like how big the database is, like for example, it will be in terabytes and petabytes of data will be there. Okay, so we have to analyze like what is the size and how long it will take to transfer data. And in case of transfer, there will be data losses, everything will be there, right? So how we can avoid those data losses, everything should be taken into account. And dependencies, in case if we have some third party integrations for payment gateways and APIs, so those things has to be considered. And downtime tolerance, so zero downtime requires more planning. Okay, so in case if we are okay with some downtime, then it is fine. In case of production, mostly no one will prefer downtime, because let's assume we have an application like for example Zomato or Swiggy or something. So in case if we are not able to access it for 1 hour, then obviously we'll look for an alternative, right? And there will be like a huge revenue loss for them as well. So similarly, in case of any application, there should be no downtime. In case if there is a downtime, it is like it is equally equivalent to the cost. Like every second or every minute, they will be losing money. Okay, so downtime should be very less, or it should be zero. And then team expertise. So as we are migrating from AWS to Azure, the team which handles this migration should have knowledge on both AWS and Azure environments. Okay, because if you are an expert in AWS and if you are not knowing how things work in Azure, or else if you are an expert in Azure and if you don't know how AWS works, then it will be tough. So the team which works on this should be having familiarity with both the clouds. So like all the cloud works on the same concept, but they should have idea like what are the key differences between them. Okay. And estimated migration timeline in case if we have multiple applications and there are some few small and medium applications as well, then we can take like some 3 to 6 months. In case of large and complex application like e-commerce, it may take 6 months to 12 months, and even if it is like a very large e-commerce applications, it may take beyond 12 months as well. Okay. And in case if you want to migrate this application with zero downtime and proper planning, everything has to be implemented, then obviously it will take more than a year, and we have to test parallelly on both the environments, because we cannot have one environment and we cannot test, because we have to test how these things work in the pilot phase in both the environments. Okay. Okay, so the next is migration stages. Okay, so the stage one is discovery and accessment. Okay, so in case if we are migrating from AWS to Azure, the thing is we have to access the environment first. Okay, so we will be having different services like EC2, RDS database, S3 buckets, API gateways, etc. So we have to analyze like what are the equivalent components in Azure. For EC2, we will have VMware and it will have its databases, and it will have its storage. So we have to analyze each and everything. So and then in case if there is some dependency mapping, for example, if you have some payment gateways and caching, yeah, like these are third parties, right? So we have to check whether those are compatible, or we have to move to some other third party applications and all. Okay, so what will be the tools mainly used for this discovery and assessment? So actually we can use Azure Migrate tool. Okay, and then in case if we take AWS, we have AWS Migrate Hub, and then we can check some dependency visualization tools as well, so that we will be getting an assessment idea and we can discover the various dependencies. Okay, so in case of this, the key deliverables will be like application dependency diagram. So we can create a diagram, like in case if there is some dependencies, we can create the flow, like which application is dependent on which one. So we can create some diagrams, and we can do the cost estimation and performance benchmark. What is performance benchmark? To analyze like how the performance has improved from previous one. So they will have certain scores, so it has to match that score, and then we can do the cost optimization and risk assessment report. Okay, so what will be the risks in this? Okay, for example, if you are moving from EC2 to VMware, will there be any risk? For example, if EC2 is offering less cost, and if you are migrating to VM, it may be like bit costly, or else in case if there is some other difficulties in migrating, in case if they have some applications which cannot be migrated to Azure because of some dependencies or that service is not available, those are all risks, right? So we have to access that risk as well. Okay, and then comes the next stage. Okay, this is planning and designing. So we should have the architecture on how we are going to migrate. So in case if we have AWS services, we should have an equivalent Azure equivalent services with a blueprint. Okay. For example, if we are migrating EC2, we have Azure VMs. For RDS, we have Azure SQL. For S3, we have Azure Blob Storage. So similarly, for each and every tool, we will have an alternative in Azure. So we have to analyze and design the architecture similar to how we have in AWS. Okay, and next is security and compliance. So the main thing in case of cloud is security and compliance. Okay, so we have to check whether the RBAC policies, RBAC means role based access control and network securities, and we have followed proper encryption for all the passwords. So all these things has to be taken care, because in case if we compromise on security, then there is nothing, it will not add value to the migration itself. Because if some hackers hack into your system and if they are able to steal the data, then there is no use of migration itself. So always security should come first. Okay, so we have to like plan all this RBAC, network security and encryption, everything, and we have to plan for downtime strategy as well. In case if we are migrating and if we are making loss for the client, then obviously it is not a good sign. Okay, so we have to plan the migration without any downtime. So how we can do it? So we can follow blue green deployment or active active model. So we can have two servers, both are running and active, so that we can have maintain zero downtime, or else we can go with the blue green deployment strategy. Okay, so what will be the key deliverables? So we have to provide the migration strategy document with all the blueprints, everything, and then Azure infrastructure design. We will have a design for AWS, right? Similarly, we have to create a design for Azure, and then data replication plan. So we shouldn't have any downtime, and the data shouldn't be lost. Okay, so we have to plan the migration. Data should be replicated live instead of any losses. Okay, and stage 3 is proof of concept. So this is very important. So it may take from a month to two. So what we have to do? So before migrating directly from AWS to Azure, we have to do some pilot migration. So what is pilot migration? So migrating a non-critical component. For example, in case if we have some components which are not critical and it can be tested, like it will not affect any end users, then we can do the pilot migration, and then we can check whether the test performance and compatibility, everything is working fine with respect to the new cloud Azure. Okay, and then we have to do the performance benchmarking. Okay, so we can compare AWS and Azure performance metrics. For example, if you are able to do a task in 10 minutes, so how long does it take in Azure? Whether it takes 9 minutes, 8 minutes, or else it is going to take 11 or 12 minutes. So we have to analyze that one. And tools we can use are like Azure Migrate. You can use Terraform to create and automate the infrastructure of AWS and Azure, and we can use Ansible for the automation. Okay, so what we have to deliver? We have to deliver the POC report with findings. Like these are all the findings. This service is far better. This service is equally working equally with AWS, or else it is performing poor. So whatever you find it, you can create a document in, you can share it, and we can provide the performance comparison charts, like how long it takes from AWS to Azure. Because in case if we are migrating from one cloud to another, the main things which we should consider is cost and then performance. In case if the performance is good, then we can migrate, or else we are saving something, then we can migrate. In case if we are paying more and if there is no performance, then obviously there is no use in migrating itself, right? So we have to check those things, and refine the migration approach. Like we have to separate the components, whether it is critical or non-critical, and how important the data is, and then we have to plan for downtimes, everything. So we should have a refined migration approach. And stage 4 is for data migration. So this may take like a couple of months. It depends on how huge your data is. So in case of AWS, we have already seen we can use some snowballs and all, right, for migration. So here how we can migrate the databases. So in case if we are migrating databases, we can use Azure Database Management Service, DMS, for SQL and PostgreSQL services. Okay, and file migration. In case if we have some files, we have something called AZ copy. Okay, so that in case of large files, we can migrate. Or else we have Azure Database, similar to AWS Snowball. We have Azure Database for petabyte scale data. Okay, in case if we are using some huge datas for data analysis and all, then actually we can use Azure Databox for transfer of data. And we also should take care of real-time replications. Okay, for example, we have a banking application. Okay, and if we have a banking application and if we do some transaction, we should get the passwords like OTPs, everything instantly. Okay, so all the replications should happen immediately. So in case if we are migrating from AWS to Azure, and in case during migration if we lose the data of the transaction which has been done by the user, then it will affect the users, right? So what we have to do, all the applications should transfer the data on real time. Okay, so what are the key deliverables? So synchronize the data between AWS and Azure. The data should be always syncing between AWS and Azure, and migrating runbook to data visual validation. Okay, and we should validate the data and backup and recovery plan. Okay, in case if something goes wrong, we should always have a backup and recovery plan. Okay, and stage 5 is application migration. So this is the crucial part. So what happens, like the main focus will be on the migration of application, right? So in case if we have some e-commerce application or whatever it is, so we have to plan how this application should be migrated and how its dependencies has to be migrated. Okay, so microservices. Okay, So in case if we are using microservices, then we can go ahead with Azure Kubernetes service. Okay, this is the Kubernetes offering from Azure for containerized workload. Okay, so we can go for that one. In case of server based application, we can just lift and shift from EC2 to the Azure VMs, and or else we can replatform for some app services, so that so we can use these PaaS services. And CI/CD pipeline migration, migrate Jenkins pipeline. In case if you have Jenkins pipeline, we can migrate it to Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions, whichever is required. Okay. So what will be the key deliverables in this application migration? So deployed application on Azure. So we have to deploy that application which is running on AWS to Azure, and then we have to automate the deployment pipelines. Okay, we can use in case if you want Jenkins, we can use that itself, or else in case if you have to go with Azure related DevOps tools, then you can use Azure DevOps, or else we can go with the GitHub Actions. Okay, and then we have to load balance the traffic setup. Okay, in case if you are not load balancing it properly, then actually applications may crash due to overload. Okay, and stage 6. Okay, this is like a very crucial testing and validation. Okay, so we will be performing many tests. One is functional testing, so ensure that once the application has been migrated, we have to check whether all the applications are and all the features of that application is working fine. Okay, so we have to check like product search, checkout, payment processing, cards, everything. So all the steps has to be checked in the functional testing. And performance testing, whether is there any performance degradation after the migration, or anything. So we have to validate those things, like how it is able to handle the load and all. In case if it is not able to handle the load, or some lag is there, or whatever it is, so then actually it is an issue. Okay, so we have to check the performance testing as well. And then security testing, this is crucial. In case if we have some loops, then hackers may get into our systems, and we may face financial losses and data loss as well. Okay, so we have to conduct penetration testing, and compliance audits. So what exactly is penetration testing? So penetration testing is just like we try to hack our own systems. Okay, so that we will get to know whether there are any loops in our system. Okay, so what will be the key deliverables? We will be giving the test report of all the functional performance and security, and issue logs with resolutions. For example, if you are facing some performance issues and all, we have to provide the solution, like what exactly is happening and why this issue has happened with all the logs and all. Okay, and finally you have to give final readiness assessment, like everything is ready, like, and we are ready to migrate. So we have to give those things. And stage 7 is cut over and go live. Okay, this may take a couple of weeks or a week. So how does the cutover happen? We can do the DNS cutover. Okay, switch traffic gradually using DNS routing policies. So we can switch using like routers of Azure, or else we know, right, in AWS we have Route 53. Similarly, we can do the DNS cutovers. Okay, so that URLs will be changed from one URL to the another. And blue green deployment. So what is blue green deployment? So we will have two environments for each and every application. So one will be like blue and another will be green. So we will keep AWS live as fallback until Azure is stable. Okay. So in case of Azure is fine, it will go to Azure. In case if there is some issue with Azure, it will come back to the AWS live environment. Okay. And we should have the rollback plan, because there is no guarantee all the times the migration will go successful, because it is not dependent on single team, right? Like multiple components are involved and multiple teams are involved, so there is no guarantee that the migration will be 100% successful. Because every time the migration happens, most of the cases, like 80% of the time, the rollback will happen, because you may have planned perfectly, but the other team might face some other issue during the migration. Okay, then what is the good option? Good option is rolling back. There shouldn't be any disappointment in not going ahead with the migration, because if you migrate with the faulty environments, then obviously it is going to cost you more. So falling back is far more better than directly migrating. Okay, so always you should have a rollback plan. Okay, in case, like it will not be a single team, right? You will have networking team, security team, database team, DevOps team, dev team, everything, all the testing team, everyone will be involved. So in case if something goes wrong, obviously even if one team goes wrong, like we have to roll it back, because we can't take risk. Okay, so because we are playing with huge data of clients, and data is money. Okay, in case if you're losing data, you are losing track of money as well. Okay, so we have to have proper rollback plan, so that in case of any issues, we have to revert to the old version. Okay, so what will be the key deliverables? So we have to have a checklist for the go live, and then in case of any downtime, we have to have the logs, whether it is like due to what it has been down, and a post migration monitoring dashboard. So we have to configure the monitoring as well, like how the performance metrics are there, and security, everything should be monitored. Okay, so we have to give the post migration monitoring dashboard as well. So once the migration is completed, okay, once the migration is completed, we have to optimize it. Optimize means we have to check for the possibilities of cost cut, and then how the tools performance is happening. And in case if we have to enhance or fine tune, in case if we have to fine tune any of the things, we have to check those things as well. Okay, so performance tuning, okay, optimize VMs, database, and caching and load balancers. So we have to fine tune how these things works. And then cost optimization, so we can use Azure cost management to identify and save the costs. And knowledge transfer, this is very important. So actually you have to train the teams, and then operational teams, on how to handle these things. Okay, so what will be the key deliverables? So optimize Azure architecture. Anyway, we have the architecture, and we have to fine tune each and every component involved, and we have to check for the cost management reports, and then we have to train the teams. Okay, and what are the tools involved in this migration? So in the assessment and the planning, we use Azure Migrate, AWS Migrate Hub, application dependency mapping tools. And for data migration, we will be using Azure Database Migration Tool, AZ Copy for copying the large files, and Azure Databox for in case if you have large data like petabyte data, then you can use Azure Database, or else you can use Cloud Endure. Okay. And for infrastructure, we use Terraform, Ansible, Pulumi. And for CI/CDs, Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, Jenkins, Docker, and Kubernetes. And for monitoring, Azure monitoring we have, and then log analytics. And in case if you have to go with the open source, you can go with Prometheus and Grafana. And you can for logs and all, you can use ELK stack. Okay, Elasticsearch and Kibana. Uh, and risk mitigation strategies. Okay, so what is the risk? Data loss during migration. Okay, so what is the solution? You can use real-time replication. So in the real time, when the migration happens, you can replicate the data, and you can back up also during the live migration. Okay, and downtime affecting customers. So in case if the customers are going to be affected with downtime, we can implement a blue green deployment, so that we will have two infras. Even if one infra is set up as backup, another infra will be serving the traffic. Okay, and performance degradation. So we have to conduct extensive load testing post the migration, whether it is able to perform with the same standards or beyond the existing environment. Okay, so because always when we migrate, the key criteria will be like at least it should match the existing environment with less cost, or else it should perform beyond the capabilities of current environment. Okay, and security vulnerabilities. Okay, run regular security audits and pen tests. Okay, so that we'll be able to identify any bugs in the infra, or else in any of the applications. Okay, and what are the advantages of migrating to Azure? We may have cost efficiency, because that will be one of the key reasons. Because in case if you are paying like $10 for EC2, and if you are paying $15 for Azure VM, then there is no use. Okay, so we should be having it for $10, or else with in case if you are paying $1 extra, like $11, and if you have very high performance, then we can go ahead. But in case of same performance, and we are paying $11 or $12, like $2 extra for each component, then it doesn't make any sense, right? So we could have stayed in AWS itself. Okay, so main thing is cost efficiency. So better pricing models, reserved instances, and cost management tools, and scalability. So it should be automatically scalable in case of high loads. So we can use Azure app services and Azure Kubernetes services. And integration, so this is one of the key features of Azure actually. So we have like many Microsoft tools, right? So integrating with them is very easy, because it is their own cloud, right? So in case if you have to use Power BI and Dynamic 365 and all those things, actually integrating with Azure is very easy. And security, so advanced security tools are available in Azure, like Azure Sentinel and Security Center. Okay, so in case, so if you are migrating from AWS to Azure, in case if you are migrating from AWS to Azure, so obviously we should have high performance high performance with low cost. So this will be one of the key feature, and security should always be maintained. So what we have to do for high security, we have to do all the pen tests, and then we have to improve the RBAC policies, and we have to improve the security policies, everything. Okay. So always when we migrate from one cloud to another, we have to check the dependencies, whether all the services are available. In case if certain services available in AWS, the same service is available in Azure or not. So all those things should be taken into account. Okay. So that's it, guys. Thank you for listening till now. In case if you like the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. That will be motivating me to do more videos. Okay. Thank you.